Hey, good morning and welcome to Church at the Well. My name is Tony and I'm one of the pastors here on staff, and it's my privilege to welcome you to our online service today and into this Advent season. Advent, that's a word. Maybe you're familiar with it, maybe you aren't. It's an old word and it means coming or arrival. And this is the season every year that we as followers of Jesus celebrate the reality that God himself has come. He's arrived into the world in the person of his son, Jesus Christ. And in fact, more than that, the reality is he's constantly coming. He's constantly breaking in and arriving into our lives, showing his goodness and his love. And even more, we know that one day we have a promise that Jesus himself will come again. He will arrive to make all things right. Everything in the world that we know that is not quite the way that it is meant to be. Things are not all right. We know one day they will be because he will come again. And what we're calling this Advent series this year is Joy Actually. And we're going to be looking for and searching for the reality that joy, because Jesus has come, because he's constantly coming, because he will come again, joy is constantly breaking into the world, even into the midst of all of the things that we would say, these are not reasons for joy. These are struggles. These are hardships in life. The reality is because Jesus has come, joy has come along with him. And so over the next few weeks, as we lead up to our Christmas Eve service, we're going to be exploring the realities of the joy that we have in Jesus, because he has come, because he is coming, and because he will come again. And so with that, let's get into the rest of our service.
Together, joy to the world, joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Heaven, angels, joy to the earth, joy to the earth, the Savior reigns. Let all their songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills and plains, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat, repeat the sounding joy. We sing joy, unspeakable joy, overflowing well, no tongue can tell. Joy, unspeakable joy, rises in my soul, never lets me go. And he rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love. Joy, unspeakable joy, overflowing well, no tongue can tell. Joy, unspeakable joy,
Hey, church. My name is Jeremy Aegis. I'm not on staff here, but privileged to be one of the elders that serves on the board here at The Well. In fact, my family and I have been blessed to be part of this community for quite some time now. So I've seen many of these messages, still kind of new to giving them, but definitely honored to be here with you today. And today it's December 19th, 6 more sleeps till Christmas. Isn't it funny that we measure certain things in sleeps? I always used to think that was just something that I did as a kid, but I don't know, it seems to have carried on into adulthood too. I work in marketing strategy. I actually had somebody start on my team this week. And the day before she started, she sent me an email. She's like, 1 more sleep, really looking forward to it. So it carries on. But it is funny that we only sort of talk about measuring time in sleeps when it's positive, right? Like when there is an expectation of joy, because you don't hear people saying like, oh man, only 2 more sleeps till that bio midterm, are you ready? Or, hey hun, 3 more sleeps till my colonoscopy. Like it just doesn't happen. But Christmas is one of those sleep measuring days. And actually the first Christmas was a day of anticipation as well, but with a whole lot more waiting. Like if you thought opening up, 24 of those little calendar doors, was wait enough. Like imagine being part of Israel, waiting for that very first Christmas. I mean, if there was a tiny little calendar door for every generation that the Israelites had to wait between when the world fell into sin and needed Jesus and when Jesus actually arrived, that calendar would need to start on November 7th. And those are generations. Those are not just days. And I know, mind you, there's probably a few people out there that are thinking, an Advent calendar that starts on November 7th, I'm in. Like, that sounds good to me. But I digress. But just to put it into context how long that is, so the first chapter of Matthew's Gospel, the first of 4 Gospels, the books that really tell about the good news of Jesus, which is what gospel means, good news, and the first book of the New Testament doesn't begin with the Christmas story, but rather begins with the genealogy of Jesus. And I'm not going to read it all for you because we could be here for a while. But spoiler alert, there are 42 generations between Adam and Jesus. And that is a lot of generations, estimated to be at about 2,000 years, or in other words, a very, 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 very long time, a very, very long wait. And so if the God who created us, who created a plan for the world that involves so much waiting, why are we so bad at it? Like, why do we find it so hard? Why does our culture spend so much time avoiding, trying to get out of, trying to speed up, trying to eliminate, trying to solve for the wait? I mean, think about it. Just think about your everyday life. Think about this past week, the errands you run, the things you do, the places you're trying to get to. Think about it, and it's clear, right? Like, we really do not like waiting. I mean, just look at this poor guy and his waiting problems.
Oh! Hey Siri, set timer for 14 minutes.
Okay, 14 minutes and counting.
Waiting for cookies. Hey Siri, play me waiting playlist. Thank you.
If I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do
Me so hungry for cookie.
is to save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend them with you.
Hey Siri, check the timer.
Could make days
Here's the timer.
last forever.
Oh,
Poor Cookie Monster, right? But really, waiting is hard. And if you think about it, like, we should be pretty good at it. Like, I stumbled across some research on the topic, and can anybody out there guess like how much time on average in your life you are going to spend waiting in lines? Yeah, 5 years. And 6 months of that at traffic lights, which is the worst. But no, even with all that practice, we're not good at it. And honestly, it's getting worse. Like, studies say that our attention span is now 8 seconds. But is it even that? Like, based on how quickly you thumb scroll through TikTok or Instagram to that next bit of content, or based on how fast you can hit that skip pre-roll ad button on YouTube, 8 seconds actually seems pretty generous. But in our on-demand culture, just-in-time production, one-click ordering, online gaming, tech speak, everything digital at our fingertips, it's easy to see how quickly we can become impatient with waiting. But why? Like, I mean, we all agree that we don't like waiting, but why don't we like waiting? And I believe it has to do with joy. Or rather, I believe it's because the wait is that thing that is getting between us and the thing we'd rather be doing or the place we'd rather be. There's an expectation of joy on the other side of this wait. And this wait is just getting in the way. I mean, the equation is simple, right? Like you take these steps, you take this time, the wait will end and joy will begin, right? Like there are 8 people ahead of you in line to order coffee. Maybe it'll take 10 minutes. I'll be able to order my latte. And in the meantime, I'll just text some friends. But really, that's known outcome waiting. And I actually feel like we've got some strategies for that, right? But what happens when the thing we are waiting for isn't so defined? Like, I don't think we have to look too far for some insight. I mean, 21 months ago, the world locked down, and we waited. I mean, 2 to 3 weeks turned into 2 to 3 months, and with everything going on, it's going to be even longer. And we felt lost. And we clamored for someone to tell us the steps and the timeline. We became news junkies, searching for those answers. We became captivated with case counts and positivity rates and vaccine rollouts. We talked a lot about the first thing we're going to go do, the first place we'll eat when we can get out of this, or the first place we'll go when all this is over. We longed for this. We longed for this to be like one of those known outcome waits. And we were really obsessed with figuring out how to define the end, because the end meant joy. And I don't know about you, but I do not think that we waited all that well. And so it begs the question, do we know how to wait when the outcome is unknown? When the equation isn't that simple? Like when we can't sit in a line or set a kitchen timer, or open 24 little calendar doors to tell us when the wait will be over. Do we know how to wait when we aren't even clear sometimes what the problem is, let alone the solution? Like when we feel the issues are only just beginning, let alone could be ending. Or when you can barely see the tree in front of you through the fog, let alone the forest. So what do you do when waiting for joy isn't guaranteed? Is it possible to even wait with joy? Now, this is a question that I've actually been asking myself for a while now. So about 4 years ago, my mom started to feel some stiffness in her legs. I mean, maybe you start to chalk it up to getting older, but that had never been my mom. Like, if you're fortunate to know my mom, you know that she lived like someone so much younger. Super active physically, sharp mentally, strong spiritually, very social. But after a few months of fairly rapid deterioration, suddenly, small things, small actions like walking up the stairs became mountains of a challenge. And at one point, when her mind said step and her legs said no, she ended up in the hospital for a few days with stitches. But more so, the real awakening to that was that things really weren't right. And for me, it started out as outcome-based waiting. Okay, we're going to get this test, we're going to learn what's going on, we're going to make a plan. But that didn't happen. And in the years since, test after test, specialist after specialist, Google search after Google search, neurologist 1 led to neurologist 2, to neurologist 3, and 4. The waiting gets harder. No answers, only questions. And a future that looks very different than the one that she had planned only a few years back. I mean, we're waiting for healing. I mean, at this point, honestly, we're waiting for a diagnosis. Like, I just want somebody to say, this is what's going on. Because then my mindset suddenly shifts again to, well, now we know what's going on. We can figure this out. Mom will get better and joy will be restored. But that's not happening. And so we wait. And it's hard. to see someone who is so active. It's like cycling in the valley, serving our local church kitchen, playing with their grandkids, fairly suddenly have all of that altered. And we don't know why or what to do. We wait, we pray, we wait. And if I'm honest, there are days where I shake my fist and I go, God, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? But look, and I know that we're not alone. I know many of you are waiting on something like that too. And maybe you walked in here today, really clouded, or are listening here today, really clouded by that wait. Or maybe you're hearing me talk and suddenly all those thoughts, are pulling at you even now. And maybe your situation is different. And there are a number of different situations that we could be waiting through. Maybe you're waiting for your work situation to change. For the workload to get lighter, maybe for that challenging coworker to change or to leave, for that promotion or job offer to finally come through. Maybe you're just waiting to grow up. You're just done being young, being dependent, being unable to make the kinds of decisions that you know or feel you are ready for. You can't wait to just get out and live your life. Maybe you're waiting for an apology. A relationship that was once sort of near and dear to you has been damaged. You're waiting for the right moment to say, I'm sorry. Or you're waiting for any moment for that other person to say sorry to you. And maybe you're just waiting for the world to change. The injustices you see or even experience pains you deeply and personally. You're waiting for all lives to matter, for child poverty to matter, for the well-being of the earth to matter. You're just waiting for more to matter to more people. And maybe your waiting isn't so big. Maybe you find yourself in this perpetual cycle of waiting for things like class to be over, the workday to be over, the kids to stop fighting, for the weekend to begin. Or maybe your wait is health-related too, like mine. You've been hit with a diagnosis you didn't see coming. It was not part of your plan, physically or mentally. It's disrupted your life, and you find yourself waiting for healing, for answers, really wondering if you'll ever not be waiting. And for some of you, maybe you're not in a wait per se right now, but have recently come through one. And those memories are close, just under the surface. And you're actually waiting for when dealing with it is going to be easier. Whatever your situation, if you're honest, there is probably something in your life right now, or recently, that made you wonder why. Why me? Why them? Why now? Why this way? Why is it not figured out? Why is it not over? Why is there no healing? And in some moments you feel deep down inside this frustration, this yearning, this calling out as well, where you're saying, God, what are you waiting for? I've been there. I think many of us have. And I think that's okay. If we can't go to God honestly, who can we go to? But I think if we want to figure out how to wait, how to even be in a posture where we could allow joy to break in, we need to reframe that question. From God, what are you waiting for? To Jer, what are you waiting for? So, okay, what does this all have to do with Christmas, right? We're 6 weeks from Christmas. What does this have to do with Christmas? The obvious answer is Jesus. And it's true. But I think the Christmas story gives us a much deeper insight into how we can shift from this idea of waiting for expected joy to waiting with experienced joy. So we're going to read from Isaiah in a minute, a very familiar passage for Christmas, a passage that was actually written over 700 years before Jesus' birth, and one that I think holds a lot of clues in how Jesus can bring joy in the midst of our waiting.
The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. You have enlarged the nation and increased their joy. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, as warriors rejoice when dividing the plunder. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing it and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this.
So I wonder if you really took notice of the 4 names of Jesus in that passage. Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. I mean, hopefully you did. And for the people Isaiah would have been writing to, they would have for sure caught those names. But truthfully, most of them would have felt, outside of maybe Mighty God, that these aren't the names or the kinds of attributes the people of Israel would have been expecting to hear about their coming Messiah. I mean, Wonderful Counselor. I mean, their leaders were rabbis, right? Like men who taught, directed, managed down. Wise counsel? Yes. Wonderful Counselor? That would not have been what they were expecting. Prince of Peace? I mean, their rulers were warriors, right? Like they were men built for battle, and war defined the region in that time, filled with epic combats, coups, assassinations. And throughout those next 700 years, as potential Jewish saviors rose up, their attributes were characterized very differently. I mean, take Judas Maccabeus, who led revolts about 160, 170 years before Jesus was born. I mean, his surname means the hammer. I mean, and it was given to him because of his ferocity in battle, right? Like, I mean, that's what the kind of language and the kind of names that they were expecting. I mean, Everlasting Father, Everlasting Kingdom, yes. They were expecting regal, not relational. So those 4 amazing attributes come as contrast to the expectations of the day. So why include them? Well, you see, friends, God didn't just send Jesus to save us. He sent Jesus to shape us as well. God knew that the journey wouldn't be easy, that there would be trials and challenges and hardships and heartbreaks, and that there would be days and months and years where joy would really seem, forgotten, far away, for someone else. So when God first starts to describe the gift of Jesus he is going to give us that first Christmas, he talks about these amazing ways that Jesus is going to come alongside us, support us, strengthen us, sustain us, shape us through our waiting. He sets up that Jesus' work isn't finite and isn't only focused on his death and resurrection, but that Jesus' work is ongoing and everlasting. For the world, but also for us, for you and for me. And the 4 names of Jesus, are the clues that he promises to be doing a good work in each of us, in every situation, every wait, and will continue to do so until the day of completion. And friends, that's the incredible gift of Jesus that was given to us at Christmas, that Jesus as Wonderful Counselor, Jesus as the Mighty God, Jesus as the Everlasting Father, and Jesus as the Prince of Peace is the gift that means that when the outcome of our situation, our wait is unclear, that we can wait with joy. And so I want us to take these 4 names and really bring them close to our situation. And I want to bless you with experiencing that joy of Jesus again this Christmas as you wait. So, Wonderful Counselor, maybe you are feeling so alone, so stuck in what has transpired in your life, so lost in the desert of your wait right now that you really just need to feel Jesus, the Wonderful Counselor's presence, near you, and hear him say, "I'm here. Let's talk." That the Jesus who wept for a friend will weep with you as a friend. And if that's you right now, receive that gift of Jesus. Mighty God, maybe you're feeling exasperated in life right now, that the work you're doing is wearing you out. No matter how hard you try, it doesn't seem to be making a difference. You feel like giving up. So maybe this Christmas you need to be reminded of the strength of Jesus, the mighty God. The same Jesus who, after 40 days of fasting in the desert, was able to resist temptation and return in the power of the Spirit. And he has given you that same Spirit to strengthen you. So if that's you today, receive that gift of Jesus. Everlasting Father, maybe you're in a place of grieving. You're waiting for a hurt to be healed. And maybe you aren't waiting right now, but are reminded of a time when you were. And maybe things didn't end the way that you wanted them to. And this time of year only brings back to the surface, and the thought of joy and Christmas just don't go together for you right now. Maybe you need to feel the love of Jesus as that everlasting Father. Feel his arms come around you and hold you close. Like the Jesus who welcomed the children to come to him, that he welcomes you as a child as well, as family. If that's you, receive that gift of Jesus. Prince of Peace, maybe you are feeling anxious in the midst of your waiting. That a lack of clarity around what is happening around you, why you are feeling the way that you are, why things don't seem to be making any sense or getting any better, and why those things are causing you to feel like someone you don't want to be. The feelings you don't want to feel. You feel stressed, like you need to do more, take more control. That if I can only do this, everything will be okay. Maybe you need to experience a sense of peace this Christmas. To feel Jesus, the Prince of Peace, the Jesus who is able to calm the stormy seas with a single phrase. I pray that a word from Jesus will come to you this week, and that you may be reminded that the Prince of Peace is always there and willing to just be there with you and calm the storms in your heart and mind. If that's you, receive that gift of Jesus. So one of these might have resonated with you. For others, you may be thinking of a few of these things. Or maybe you're not thinking about you at all right now, but someone close to you who might need to receive this kind of gift of Jesus this Christmas. So I want to give you a few moments to reflect on this. Just sit with it and really feel it. And so as the band plays, think about those attributes, the names of Jesus, whose arrival we celebrate this Christmas.
There is no one else for me, none but Jesus, crucified to set me free. Now I live to bring him praise. In the chaos, in confusion, I know you're sovereign still. In the moment Jesus, crucified to set me free. Now I live to bring him praise.
Do you feel that, church? Like, do you receive that? Like, I know for me, I feel like I've wanted aspects of all of those characteristics of Jesus at different times. But I think the one that resonates for me right now is really that idea of Jesus as the Prince of Peace. And I've actually, in my situation that I told you about earlier, I've seen joy break through in my mom's situation. Like, her positivity, and even more so, like, her commitment to prayer has been so inspiring. And just really seeing, too, how my dad has come alongside her, to really support her in a whole new way, is just really another dimension, another example of what marriage and what a loving marriage is and can be. And just a really great example for me and my family. And so I actually feel blessed through that. And so the Jesus I long for now is really the one that can continue to give that sense of peace to the situation, to be able to see the joy in this journey, while continuing to pray for more joy at the end. And you see, church, Christmas really does give us a different way to wait. We asked earlier, what are you waiting for? It changes what we are waiting for, because the one we are waiting for is already here. And just think about that. It changes what we are waiting for, because the one we are waiting for is already here. That Jesus we just talked about is a Jesus that we can call on whenever we need to. And therefore, it also changes how we wait. That while we wait for expected joy, because there is that promise of expected joy, we can wait with experienced joy as well. Isn't that such a beautiful balance of knowing that joy is out there, but joy can be had right now too? That's what Christmas is all about. And so, with 6 more sleeps until Christmas, I want to remind you that there are 0 more sleeps till you can receive that ongoing, everlasting promise of joy that Jesus brings to not just save you, but to shape you into who he has planned you to be, and for the purpose that he has planned you to be a part of. And so, friends, with that, I want to leave you with 2 very simple, practical next steps. One is that I invite you to join us on Christmas Eve, which, if you're good at math, is only 5 sleeps away. But we're going to gather together online and in person as the culmination of anticipation of Jesus' birth comes to that end and to that celebration. And I always find it such a joy-filled service. It's always one of my favorites of the year. It's a beautiful experience. And so I invite you to participate in any way that you can. And second, I want to encourage you to invite others to Christmas. Christmas is really one of those times that naturally brings people together. And so if you know someone that could really use being around someone this Christmas, invite them. Invite them to the service, invite them to watch online, or just invite them into something that you are doing this Christmas. And so as we listen to a closing song, before we do that, I do just want to pray with you, and then that'll end my message. So pray with me, church. Heavenly Father, I just thank you that you have a plan for all of us, a plan for each of us, a plan that you have been planning for a long time. And while we seem to always be in a hurry, wanting our waits to be over, we know that you are not in a hurry. Yet you give us everything we need to live through the highs and the lows. And so we thank you for Christmas, for sending Jesus, and for the reminder that Jesus is working in us today, even now. That the good news of great joy for all people is for each of us. And so I pray that as we leave here today and go through the rest of this Christmas season, that we will feel the joy of Jesus in a real way, in a way that comforts us, counsels us, challenges us, changes us. And I lift that all up in Jesus' name. Amen. Blessings, church.
Your grace is sufficient for me. Your strength is made perfect when I am weak. All that I cling to, I lay at your feet. So grace is sufficient for me. Your grace is sufficient for me. Your strength is made perfect when I am weak. And all that I cling to, I lay at your feet. Your grace is sufficient for me. Sing this one more time, church, together as a prayer over our lives. Your grace is sufficient for me. Your strength is made perfect when I am weak. And all that I cling to, I lay at your feet. Your grace is sufficient. Your grace is sufficient. Your grace is sufficient for me.
As we bring our service to a close, we don't want to let you go without letting you know about a few important things coming up in the coming days. First off, our Christmas Eve service that's happening on Friday, December 24th. There's going to be live in-person services at each one of our sites. Vaughan will be at 3 o'clock, King City at 4:30, and Bolton at 6 p.m. We hope to see you there, as it will be an amazing time to celebrate the birth of Jesus and everything that means for our lives. I also want to let you know about the Week of Prayer, which is coming up at the very first full week of the new year. It's going to be beginning on Sunday, January 2nd, and we'll go for 5 nights straight that week up until Thursday, January 6th. Every night we're going to be gathering, and this is a practice that we do. If you've been part of our church for any length of time, you'll know that this is one of the highlights of our year, where we commit to beginning the first full week of every year by coming together as a community to pray, to seek God for ourselves, for our own lives, for our families, for our church, but also for our communities and the world around us. We want to ask God to continue to break in and work in His power and in His love and in His goodness in so many ways as we look to the year ahead. It's an incredible way to start the year, friends, so I want to encourage you even now to mark each one of those days off on your calendar. Some of those gatherings will be in person, some will be online over Zoom. But either way, we're going to be gathering together to ask God to work powerfully among us in the year ahead. Friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks for taking part in our online service. I want to bless you as you go into your week, that joy will go with you.